Good evening and welcome. This is Primetime News on MITV. First, the headlines. President Muhammadu Buhari launches digital currency e-Naira. And journalists storm police headquarters protest over missing colleague Todo Salem. From the foreign scene, military dissolves transition government, declares state of emergency in Sudan. And in sport, Mohamed Salah wants £500,000 per week at Liverpool. I am Tomisi Ojo. Now the news in detail. President Muhammadu Buhari has launched the country's digital currency e-Naira as Nigeria became the first country in Africa and one of the first in the world to introduce a digital currency to its citizens. The event was held on Monday at the State House in Abuja with the Vice President, Professor Yemi Oshibajo, the Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Godwin Emefiele, and other dignitaries in attendance. During the launch, the President said the adoption of the new CBN digital currency is estimated to increase Nigeria's GDP by $29 billion over the next 10 years. Other countries like China, the Bahamas, and Cambodia have also launched digital currencies. The digital currency has two applications, the e-Naira Speed Wallet and the e-Naira Merchant Wallet, which were launched on the Google Play Store and the Apple Store on Monday at the State House. A statement on the e-Naira website explained the overall function of the currency and its value to Nigeria's economy, with e-Naira as a Central Bank of Nigeria issued digital currency that provides a unique form of money denominated in the Naira.
B, encouraging rapid financial inclusion. C, reducing the cost of processing cash. D, enabling direct and transparent welfare interventions to our citizens. E, increasing revenue and tax collection. F, facilitating diaspora remittances into Nigeria. G, reducing the cost of financial transactions and improving the efficiency of payments in Nigeria. Therefore, the e-Naira is Nigeria's CBDC, and it is digital equivalent of the physical Naira. As the tagline simply encapsulates, the e-Naira is the same Naira with far more possibilities. The e-Naira, like the physical Naira, is a legal tender in Nigeria and a liability of the Central Bank of Nigeria. The e-Naira and Naira will have the same value and will always be exchanged at 1 Naira to 1 e-Naira.
In another development, President Muhammadu Buhari has lauded the exploits of the Nigerian armed forces to maintain peace and unity and stability in the country, urging Nigerians to celebrate them as the pride of the country. The president gave the charge at the 2022 Armed Forces and Remembrance Day Emblem Appeal Lunch, an annual event to appreciate the gallantry, sacrifice, and accomplishment of veterans of the First and Second World War, peace support operations, and internal security operations in Nigeria. Paying tribute to veterans who devoted most of their lives, their active lives, to securing the nation and the world, particularly those who paid the supreme sacrifice, President Muhammadu Buhari said the country's effort at nationhood since independence have been challenged by a civil strife, a civil war, and much uprising and violent agitations, but was quick to point out that the country has remained united. Stop. Don't worry.
On behalf of the service chiefs, I would like to indicate that we will handsomely support the donations that are ongoing to ensure that our veterans live a very comfortable life. Thank you, Excellency.
Thank you, CDS. And finally,
no, sir. Okay.
President Muhammadu Buhari has departed for Riyadh, Saudi Arabia to participate in an investment conference organized by the Future Investment Initiative Institute. The presidential aircraft conveying the president and few members of his entourage took off from the presidential wing of the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport, Abuja, at about 4:10 p.m. A statement issued by Garuba Shehu, the president's spokesman, on Monday, said the president would be joined at the 5th edition of the flagship investment event by business executives from Nigeria, including bankers, captains of industry, energy experts, to discuss the issues of the future of the investments across the globe. According to Shehu, the president will perform the Lesser Hajj in Medina and Makkah before returning to the country on Friday. Those accompanying the president on the trip include the Minister of Industry and Trade and Investment, Otumani Adebayo, Minister of Communications and Digital Economy, Professor Issa Pantami, Minister of State for Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Zubairu Daja.
In August 2017, from his medical vacation then, his health has held on very well. Last year it's doubtful whether he went out. So if it is time to do it now, then it's time to do it.
But there's nothing to worry about.
Window of opportunity.
Journalists on Monday stormed the police headquarters in Abuja to protest over the continued detainment or disappearance of their colleague Todu Salem, a journalist with Vanguard newspaper. Salem, who is a native of Tiv, Benue State, covers the House of Representatives. He was last seen on the 13th of October 2021. The NUJ chapter in Abuja had earlier raised an alarm over his sudden disappearance. They asked the police and the DSS to help unravel the mystery surrounding Salem's whereabouts. During Monday's protest at the police headquarters in Abuja, the police PRO addressed the crowd, saying efforts are ongoing to locate Salem and assured that the Inspector General of Police, Usman Baba, is interested in the case and would see it to the end.
Significant progress with investigation. But I'm glad that the chairman of the council understood the need for confidential briefing. And because of that request, I would rather do more of confidential briefings. But it suffices to say here that we've been able to trace where he visited when he left the National Assembly. We've been able to interact with a young lady who spent time with them that night. We have the records of the last calls he made. We have spoken to about 6 different persons whom he spoke to that night. And there are a lot of efforts behind the scene taking place.
The International Center for Interreligious and Intercultural Dialogue, CICID, says the refusal of the federal government to expose sponsors of terrorism in Nigeria is rather fueling insecurities in the country. Facilitator and convener of the event, Ojakpa Stephen, said this in Abuja at a one-day roundtable discussion on insecurity and the way forward. The facilitator of the intergovernmental organization, governed by both religious leaders, said the gap between religious leaders and policymakers must be bridged in order to advocate for peace and combat violent extremism. He, however, called on the federal government to partner with more civil society organizations and other stakeholders to address the challenges of insecurities in Nigeria. Also speaking, Lantana Abdullahi, a member from CICID Fellowship, said the voices of women and girls and children are not heard as they are mostly victims of crisis. She, however, appealed to the government to include more women in the security sector. With the urgency to increase turnover, which is often one of the causes of road crashes with the end of the year approaching, the Federal Road Safety Corps FRSC says it has continued to engage commercial vehicle drivers on the need to take extra care while behind the wheels. The Lagos State Sector Commander of the FRSC, Olusegun Ogungbemide, came out with the assertion while speaking with MITV News in Lagos. This, according to him, was imperative due to the increase in road accidents involving commercial vehicle drivers at this time of the year, because such drivers in most cases throw caution to the wind in order to get to their destinations as quickly as possible. Ogunwemide said the FRSC was intensifying its Ember Month campaign for drivers and other stakeholders at motor parks across the state while advising against overspeeding.
So now we enter the Ember Month, like you are all aware. Some people feel, especially the commercial drivers, that feel, oh, it's getting towards the end of the year. They have to increase the turnaround or turnover of their movement from one point to the other, and in the course of that, getting involved in excessive speeding and recklessness that has led to many crashes and fatality. And the major approach to this that FRSC has embraced over the years is to continue to emphasize on the need for the drivers to be careful. We sensitize them, we go to the various motor parks, where we have engaged virtually all the stakeholders, because we know that enforcement can only take care of 15% when it comes to the effort in reducing road traffic crashes.
To tackle global warming and its negative impact worldwide, governments and experts in the environmental sector have emphasized the need to take proactive measures against the menace. This is more as humanity and the ecosystem is already suffering from an adverse effect of global warming. This report by our correspondent, Fatuke Kunle, is presented from our studio.
For some time now, the world has suffered from the menace of global warming as iceberg melts, deserts are increasing while the temperature is rising. Amidst this increasing trend, world leaders and governments believed there was no better time to take proactive measures than now.
Meaning how much we can do when we work together. This is the time to act. This is the time for climate action. Just a final short comment to express my gratitude to all the people.
This is more so as the more developed countries appear not to be doing much in reducing carbon emissions due to the rate of their industrialization, which is fast increasing in spite of agreed commitment at various international meetings to contribute meaningfully to the ecosystem, which has been adversely affected.
People are suffering. People are dying. Entire ecosystems are collapsing. We are in the beginning of a mass extinction, and all you can talk about is money and fairy tales of eternal economic growth. How dare you!
Amidst such development, there is great concern that Africa, due to its already hot climate, may be much adversely affected, but some expert and environmental issues believe the continent may not really bear the brunt, as even in the Arctic and Antarctic poles of the world, characterized by extreme cold and icy landscape, the rate by which iceberg melts is worrisome.
The more developed countries have burned so much fossil fuels in order to develop their economies. And now we, underdeveloped countries that are trying to build up our own industries, are told to cut back on our emissions and not to cut down our trees. So some would argue that we are still developing and we need to take those steps in order to have a faster development, and that we should not be punished at the same rate as developing countries.
Here in Nigeria, is there any positive measures by government and stakeholders in the environment towards combating global warming and the menace it poses? How has the campaign on tree planting gone across the country?
We want to make sure it's grandiose. We want to make sure every youth, everybody is carried along, because it's something that must be done, something that must be sustained. This is a fight to finish. We must restore the climate integrity of our planet.
What a lot of people are hoping is that the federal government, which very rightly is emphasizing a lot of resources and time on protecting the northern
Town planners have canvassed the enactment and implementation of fiscal planning laws in the 30 years and 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory for the nation to achieve proper town planning. This came to the fore at an event in Lagos organized by the national president of the Nigeria Institute of Town Planners, Toyin Ayinde. He said no sustainable development can take place in the absence of town planning law and its implementation, pointing out Lagos is the only state to have passed a law on town planning, the implementation of which is ongoing. The Lagos State Chairman of the Town Planners, Ayo Adejumo, expressed satisfaction that residents were getting informed about town planning rules and regulations for development purposes.
When these plans are made and they are not implemented, there is as good as not planning. So although Lagos State is putting so many plans in place now, I think first it needs to go and review that regional plan so that let's even know how much land is remaining for development in Lagos, because it looks as if everybody is just developing, people are getting approval for estates and nobody is measuring whether we are encroaching on wetlands, we are encroaching on lands to be conserved, and whether we are even developing in a way that is sustainable.
There's always been problem of implementation, and so in Lagos State, we must give kudos to the government, present government, for efforts that they are making to ensure that the town planning regulations are enforced and are implemented. And we have been seeing changes now as regards the implementation of town planning laws and regulations. And because of the awareness that the government is creating, people now know about town planning laws and regulations. Before, people don't know about.
Sudan seems to have joined the list of countries in Africa that have been taken over by the military. We'll bring you details of that story and others from the foreign scene after this break.
Nigeria go join body with every other country for this world to enter that battle what they call digital broadcasting. This digital broadcasting is better pass those time when we say we dey go outside go the Tonton TV. And not be that one, you go sit down for your comfort now. You go watch better. The TV go clear way. The people with this side go clear way. The sound man go come out well. The channel safe go increase the local TV waiting for the Obodo Naija side go come out face where come clear well. My people, Naija they enter digital.
Coming to Lagos now.
Welcome back. And now moving to stories from the foreign scene. Sudan's top general declared a state of emergency, dissolved the authorities leading the country's democratic transition, and announced the formation of a new government after soldiers detained civilian leaders Monday in what activists denounced as a coup. General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan Announcement in a televised address came after armed forces detained figures of the government in charge of leading the transition to democracy since the April 2019 ouster of autocratic President Omar al-Bashir. A statement came as clashes erupted in the capital Khartoum, with soldiers firing live rounds at people who took to the streets to protest against the power grab. The Information Ministry said the violence was largely centered outside the army headquarters in the capital hours after soldiers detained Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok, ministers in his cabinet, and civilian members of Sudan's ruling council. It said on Facebook that they were taken away after refusing to support the coup. A Saudi Arabia-led coalition says more than 260 Houthi rebels were killed in fighting over the past 3 days near Yemen's strategic city of Marib, though it was not possible to independently verify the death toll. The Iran-aligned Houthis rarely comment on losses. The rebel deaths are the latest among hundreds the coalition claims have been killed in recent battles around the internationally recognized government's last bastion in the oil-rich northern Yemen. The attacks were carried out in Al-Jawba, 50 kilometers south of Marib, and Al-Qazara, 30 kilometers to the northwest. The coalition has for the past 2 weeks reported almost daily air raids around Marib. Last week, the Saudi Arabia-led coalition said it killed 160 Houthi rebels in raids south of Marib. The Houthis began a major push to seize Marib in February and have renewed their offensive since September after a lull. The United Nations World Food Programme WFP has warned that millions of Afghans will face starvation this winter unless urgent action is taken. More than half the population, about 28.8 million people, face acute food insecurity, while 3.2 million children under 5 could suffer acute malnutrition. Afghanistan fell to the Taliban in August after the U.S. pulled out the last of its remaining troops and the militants swept across the country, retaking ground. The takeover weakened an already fragile economy that was heavily dependent on foreign aid. Western powers suspended aid, and the World Bank and International Monetary Fund also halted payments. A nation is considered aid dependent when 10% or more of its gross domestic product comes from foreign aid. In Afghanistan's case, about 40% of GDP was international aid, according to the World Bank. And coronavirus cases in Eastern Europe has surpassed 20 million as the region grapples with its worst outbreak since the pandemic started and inoculation efforts lag. Countries in the region have the lowest vaccination rates in Europe, with less than half of the population having received a single dose. The World in data said Hungary tops the region's vaccination rates, with 62% of its population having received at least one shot, whereas Ukraine has given just 19% of its residents a single dose. New infections in the region have steadily risen and now average at least 83,700 new cases per day, the highest level since November last year. Although it has just 4% of the world's population, Eastern Europe accounts for roughly 20% of all new cases reported globally. 3 of the top 5 countries reporting the most deaths in the world are in Eastern Europe: Russia, Ukraine, and Romania. Coming up next on the news, sports stories, as Mohamed Salah is demanding a £500,000 per week to sign a new contract at Liverpool. We'll bring you details after now. Welcome back. Still on the news, and now with sports stories, Mohamed Salah is demanding a £500,000 per week to sign a new contract at Liverpool, making him the best paid player at Anfield. The Egyptian's current deal is due to expire in 2023, and the Reds are eager to tie him down to fresh terms amid reported interest from Real Madrid. Salah has said he's open to seeing out his playing days at Liverpool, but he wants to be made the club's highest earner first. Reports say his agent, Rami Abbas Issa, flew into England on Saturday, fueling speculation of further talks over a new £500,000 a week deal for the Egyptian king. The 29-year-old Salah is one of the best players in the world right now. Both Abbas and the KOP striker believe that Liverpool should respond with a new contract which recognizes the fact. And in the meantime, pressure is mounting on Manchester United manager after the dreadful 5-0 loss at Old Trafford to their rivals. Following a run of bad results, some of the players are losing faith with the club. Management and coaching staff at their run of poor results continues, and 5-0 hammering from Liverpool on Sunday is part even more pressure on Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, with the team sitting 7th in the Premier League, 8 points off the league leaders and with just 1 point from their last 4 league games. There were indications while Solskjaer remains well liked by the squad, a number of them are concerned the manager and his coaching staff do not have what it takes to get them out of this current slump and propel them up the table. Following the hammering at the hands of Jogging Club side on Sunday, it is understood a lack of faith over Solskjaer's tactical ability has increased. And China has postponed the Beijing Marathon until further notice amid a surge in coronavirus infections as the country's top health official warned a fresh outbreak of cases is expected to spread further. China has reported more than 133 cases across 11 provinces so far. All of them have been linked to a highly transmissible Delta variant. The latest surge is considered the latest outbreak in the country since Nanjing in August this year. It has raised concerns over China's ability to maintain its zero-tolerance approach to the virus, especially leading up to the 2022 Winter Olympics. Held annually since 1981, the Beijing Marathon is one of China's biggest local sporting events. The race traditionally begins at Tiananmen Square and ends in Celebration Square in Beijing's Olympic Park. And that's it on our primetime news tonight. Let's take a quick recap of our top stories before we go. President Muhammadu Buhari has today launched the digital currency e-Naira. It's now available on the Apple Play Store and the Google Play Store. And journalists stormed the police headquarters demanding the finding of a missing colleague, Todu Salem. From the foreign scene, the military dissolves a transition government in Sudan and declares a state of emergency. Mohamed Salah in sports wants £500,000 per week at Liverpool. Many thanks for joining us on our primetime news tonight. For more detail, visit our website www.mitvonline.ng. You can also visit any of our social media handles to find out more about our programs and, of course, watch the news again. I am Tomisi Ojodo. Have a pleasant night rest. Good night.